everyone, I'm Heather Poduska, star maker for entrepreneurs who want to unlock their potential, command any stage, and make blockbuster profits. Welcome to Thrive, the show where I bring you tips, resources, and people to help you create a brand that makes you happy and profitable. Here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Poduska and welcome to this episode of Thrive, the heart of social entrepreneurship with my special guest, humanitarian Linda Cruz. Linda Cruz is an international aid worker, speaker, author, and the creator of the Emergency Zen Thought Leadership Series. Linda has worked on every continent of the planet helping disaster-stricken communities, working alongside some of the world's most influential leaders, including the Dalai Lama, Sir Richard Branson, and Prince Charles. On today's episode, Linda shares with us why it's so important for each one of us to follow our passion to make the world a better place. She tells her deeply personal story of how she was temporarily stricken blind by the stress of working a job that was sucking her soul dry. And she shares with us how entrepreneurship is leading the way to create lasting and meaningful financial and economic change for these communities. Linda is a force to be reckoned with, using her heart, soul, and treasure to help people across the planet. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Poduska, and welcome to Thrive, the show where I bring you tips, resources, and people to help you create a more abundant life and business. You're in for 30 minutes of high-value content coming to you from industry leaders who are growing their business, making an impact, and rocking their brands. And no one is rocking it out more than my special guest today, Linda Cruz. Linda Cruz is an international aid worker, disaster management specialist, author, international speaker, and the creator of the Emergency Zen Thought Leadership Series. In 2014, she was appointed a senior fellow in entrepreneur in residence in the College of Business and Law at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand. Her 15 years of frontline humanitarian aid work has taken her to every continent in the world where she's assisted in some of the world's most catastrophic natural disasters, such as the Asian tsunami, the Pakistani earthquake, 2 Philippine super typhoons, and currently the aftermath of the earthquake in Nepal. Linda has worked side by some of the world's most influential figures, including the Dalai Lama, Prince Charles, and Sir Richard Branson. She's described as a cross between Florence Nightingale and Indiana Jones. Linda Cruz is the ultimate humanitarian aid worker intent on changing the world forever. Thank you so much for persevering and joining me today, Linda.
That's what it's all about. I never give up.
Yeah, well, I can see that, and I really appreciate it. And I see that you're in Boston. I mean, you've been all over the world, to every continent. How and why have you landed in Boston right now?
It's a very interesting story. As I've worked on the front line with my development work, I get very interested people wondering what I'm doing and how I'm achieving it. And I was fortunate enough to meet Liz Trubridge, who's the executive producer of Downton Abbey, about 4 years ago, and we became great friends. I was in London at an inspirational women's event. And then I got to know some of the actors. And Jim Carter, who plays Carson the butler in Downton Abbey, became a firm supporter of my work and joined a new venture we have called Wand Aid, like the magic wand. Because Jim is a great actor, he's also a magician, and he's also a great humanitarian. So Jim and I are here in Boston to do some fundraising events for the Nepal survivors of the earthquake. And so we are here in Boston. Jim arrives on the 15th of March, and he's here for a week with me. And we are presenting at a number of great venues here in Boston, I must remember them. It's the Music Hall in Portsmouth on the 18th, the Somerville Theatre on the 19th, and the Regent Theatre in Arlington on the 21st. So Jim Carter is here, and he's here with me to talk about Downton Abbey and his behind the scenes, but also to share his great humanitarian work and his help with Nepal. So this is fantastic.
That is great, and that's really right in my backwoods. So I'm really excited to have you guys here, and it's so wonderful to know you see people in film on TV and you get to know them and love their characters, but to find out that people that it's such a refreshing story to find out that characters that you love on TV are actually really great people behind the scenes as well. I love hearing that.
In fact, many of the Downton Abbey actors have become my friends over the years. They supported me hugely to help after the super typhoons in the Philippines. And they continue to do so. And yes, they're just lovely people with big hearts. So it's wonderful. I'm very honored.
Yeah, and right now we're talking about, I know that you've helped with lots of different disasters, but we're talking about Nepal. So can you talk to us specifically about what's going on there now and why you're focusing your attention on that particular disaster?
Yes, I mean, throughout my humanitarian work, what I've found is an essential piece that is missing is the recovery phase after a disaster. Because once the cameras leave, we all feel that the people are okay, they've survived the disaster and that they're all right. The cameras leave about 8 weeks later. But what happens is people may have survived, but they don't have the means to start living again. So this is where I've always plugged that gap with long-term recovery. Because what we need to do in Nepal, that they feel they're forgotten. Because, now 8 months ago, the 2 big earthquakes happened in Nepal. And one village that I'm working in currently called Devpur, 95% of the buildings collapsed. And the people, no financial security or social security. So they live hand to mouth. And so when you lose your home and your livestock are killed and your small business, whether it's a tea shop, whether it's repairing mobile phones, it's all gone. You don't have any means of being independent again. So we are there to plug that gap and to be able to help them to rebuild their lives with small grants, help them to identify market opportunities so they can then be independent and self-sufficient again. We all want that. And these people, that's why our focus is there, because we need to give them, I call it a hand up, not a handout. We want just to rebuild their lives to be independent.
I love that. And, it really does take a special heart, I think, to help people in that way, in that gap, because it's not the sexy part of disaster relief. Everybody wants to get in and roll up their arms and roll up their sleeves when the cameras are rolling, right? But when the cameras stop rolling, that's when you come in. And I think it takes a special heart to do that. So how did you find that heart inside of yourself? You weren't always a humanitarian. You weren't always in Nepal and the Philippines. Tell me a little bit and tell our audience how you got called to do this work.
Yes, but quite an interesting story. I was a nurse for 10 years, and that was my absolute calling in the UK. And then I became a single mum when I was very young. And so I gave up my nursing because it wasn't really providing enough income for me to care for my 2 children. And I decided to work for a pharmaceutical company because it had a good salary and it meant that I could have a car and a subsidized mortgage and have a better quality of life. But what I didn't realize was, for me, that at that time, the stress of doing a job I didn't really believe in and have passion about was creating a huge amount of stress in my life. And, I found myself going home and having that extra glass of wine or crying myself to sleep because my job was meaningless. And then I had a real wake-up call. I was driving from the north of England to the south, and I'd been to a very big sales conference, and the stress had got overwhelming. And as I was driving, I went blind.
Whoa.
What a shock. Yeah, absolutely. And it was before the time of mobile phones. And I sat there on a dark winter's night on the hard shoulder, thinking my life was over. I'd never see my children again. I'd never work again. And then what I realized was that I had ignored my passion and my purpose. And I had done something just for money. And the stress had just got too much. However much we try and brush that stress under the carpet, it finally catches up with us. And for me, it actually showed itself as this terrible shock of going completely blind. And as I sat there, wondering if I'd ever see again, of course, I started to pray to a God I hadn't thought about for many, many years. And that if my sight came back, I would find my passion and my purpose and I would live it. And I was, sight came back, and that's what I did.
Wow. Yeah, that God is kind of a convenient character, isn't he? Or she, or it.
Totally, yes.
So you got your sight back. But then what happened after that, Linda? Because there's a huge gap between I got my sight back and I'm in Nepal or I'm in the Philippines. What was that? And you had this cushy job, even though you didn't love it and it wasn't your passion, but you still had a family to take care of. So how did that, because I'm asking that question because I think that there's a concept or a perception that if you're doing humanitarian work, if you're doing your passion, you're broke or you're not feeding yourself or your family. So can you speak a little bit to how you carved out a life and followed your passion?
Yes, of course. I mean, to start with, when I had this wake-up call with my blindness, my children were still at home and totally dependent on me. So I knew to start with, I had to continue with the same job, even though I'd had this massive wake-up call. So to start with, I had to think, how am I going to do this? Because I couldn't continue the way I was. And so, of course, as we know, the only thing you can ever change is yourself. So I looked to see, what was going on in my own life. And I realized that I was the most negative person I'd ever met. I would listen to the conversations I was having with friends and family and colleagues. And it was literally this ping pong of negativity. It was, oh, isn't the weather bad today? Yes, but tomorrow it's going to be worse. And didn't lunch just stink? And tomorrow, it's going to be this sloppy meal. And we literally, all my conversations were just negative. So I realized the first thing I had to change was to start to become a more positive person. And so I got my children to help me. And it was quite funny because I had teenage children and I told them the 3 words we were going to ban from our vocabulary was no, not, and don't. Can you imagine? Teenage children.
I bet the teenagers love it. You must have been the most popular mom on the block.
So we started this swear box that whatever we said the words, we had to put £1 in the box. We had a very good holiday that year.
I love it.
But it taught us all that, and I realized I was really regurgitating a lot of negativity from the news. So for a month, the children and I, we just promised that we would not listen to the news and when we turned off the news, we would fill that gap with dance music or comedy shows and just start to bring in that positivity into our lives. And the effect was enormous. And so together, we were able for me to stay in the job for the number of years I needed to, and also change myself. And that's how I wrote the course Emergency Zen, from my own changing myself from being very negative to very positive. Yes. And then to carry on about how did I transition into an aid worker? Well, once my son said to me, Mum, it's time for me to go to the army. And my daughter said, I'd like to go to university now. I sat them down and I said, can I leave home now? Because I'd realised that what I really wanted to do was to care for people, but not in safe, sanitised England. I really wanted to help people who were in the most challenged and vulnerable places on earth. And once my children were happy and settled and following their dreams, I knew I had the chance to do mine.
I love so much of what you're saying. One of the things that I talk about a lot is your brain is not designed to make you successful or happy. It's designed for your survival, to keep you safe. So whenever you hear something negative, your brain pays more attention to that because it's trying to process is this dangerous or not? And if it's uncomfortable, that takes priority in your brain versus something that's positive because it's trying to keep you safe. And I think it was for every negative thing that you hear or experience or say, you have to counteract that with 3 positive things just to break even in your mindset. Not to be positive, just not to be negative. So I love what you said about that. And then the other thing that you said was you didn't just drop everything, but you changed yourself so that where you were in that moment, you were having a more positive experience. So it wasn't just like you had to dump everything, but you changed your mindset. So what you were experiencing in that moment was more tolerable and more enjoyable. So I love that as well. And then the other thing was when you were talking about the fact that you wanted to help people, I think that that's that deeper calling. And it can manifest when you are aligned with what you really want. It can manifest in different ways. You know, for me, finding my voice has been a lifelong passion. And when I was younger, that manifest as being a singer, as being an opera singer, using my physical voice, but it's transitioned into helping other people find their authentic voice in my business. But that internal thing has always been there. And I think that's so true for people on their life journey, is if they can tap into what that deeper thing is, then it's not as important how it's expressed in your work. It's more about the alignment of your calling. Would you say that's true?
Most definitely. I think whenever I get the opportunity to speak to people publicly, that is the most important message, is constantly to check how you're feeling. I think I think it was even Steve Jobs who said, if you look in the mirror 3 days in a row and you say to yourself, how happy am I doing what I'm doing? And the answer comes back no. You really have to start thinking again about how you're filling your time. It's such a precious thing that we have. And we were born to actually share our gift, and we each have one of those very deep within us. And it's for us to really get in touch with that and to live the happiest, most positive life we can.
So I'm clapping for you right now, Linda, because I liked what you just said. That's what those little hands are at the bottom of the screen. I'm applauding for you. I love that. So, it must have been, even though you knew you were following your passion, it must have been scary at some level to know that you were leaving this secure job. So if someone is, are you familiar with Marie Forleo? Because she just talked about this as well. She was talking about, someone had asked her the question, do I go for the safety or do I go for my passion? And I don't necessarily think those things have to be opposites, but if you're not sure if what you're going for is going to work out, say you've got a 50-50 shot of success,
yes,
what would you tell people about that?
Oh, I think always listen to your gut, always feel your heart what it wants, because as you mentioned earlier, fear is always good and that keeps us safe. But, I have this phrase where I say the most dangerous place to be is in your comfort zone. And I don't care if you go into a restaurant, you should be looking for something on that menu you've never eaten before, because that's even taking you just slightly out of what your normal habits are. When you go to work, don't take the same route, drive a different way. If we start just gently realizing that we can do different things, you start to stretch yourself and stretch your experiences. And so that 50-50 chance of jumping, actually you start to feel more comfortable with. And usually those exciting experiences and the friends and the people that you're likely to meet are when you take that risk to step outside of your normal box. So I would encourage people to do it.
Although I have to say, if tripe is on the menu, I'm not sure I can pull that trigger.
I'd agree with you there.
So let's talk a little bit about how your life has changed since you've been helping people. And, talk to us about some of the relationships that you've forged and the transformations in the communities that you've seen after you've done the work that you've done in this mission work.
Yes, I mean, I have been very blessed to meet some very powerful leaders throughout my humanitarian work. And I always credit Prince Charles for being the person who really has helped me to develop the very successful model I've used. And I met him first in Delhi in a Tibetan refugee camp. And I always use the private sector and industry leaders to help me. And because I feel they are the most underused resource in development work. People in any business, you have such great entrepreneurial skills, creativity, business acumen, and we're not using it in some of the most hardest places that we need you. So I met Prince Charles in this very challenging and quite smelly refugee camp, and he was such a superstar. And he met all the Tibetans, and he said to me, when people offer you money, you always need money to help on the humanitarian front line, but you also need the people. You need their hearts and souls. You need to engage them. The money is always needed, but you want them. So never just take the money. Encourage the people to come with you, to understand, to have the experience. And I've always used that in my humanitarian work. So that was a great connection I made 15 years ago and is still a connection. And then the lovely Richard Branson, again, an incredible humanitarian. But people always think I meet these great people in, you know, on Necker Island or somewhere really beautiful like a palace. And that's very rare. Richard Branson I met in Soweto, just outside of Johannesburg. And we got on quite quickly because I was holding the toilet door for him and we both had a funny tummy.
That is a very sexy story, I have to say.
We were not sipping cocktails on Necker Island. We were on the front line, muddy, sweaty.
That's awesome.
But again, he's a great humanitarian and he works in a very similar way that I do, helping businesses as a force for good. And then, of course, His Holiness the Dalai Lama I met many times, you know, and was lucky enough to work alongside projects he was doing in Tibet. So I have met some great and amazing people, but always on the front line.
Yeah. So, but tell us a little, well, first of all, I have to say, I'm glad to hear that Prince Charles is out there doing some good work, because I think he gets kind of a bad rap sometimes. So that's really nice to hear that. But tell us a little bit about the results of the work that you've done, you know, that you've gone on. Let's hear some success stories of you know, putting yourself on the front line like that.
Yes, as I say, I mean, my key thing is to get people back standing alone again. And what happens is when you have, you know, you're in a big survivors camp after a disaster and you have a woman come up to you and try to give you their baby and say, Linda, I can no longer feed my baby, please take her and feed her. And we all know that is not the way to go. You have to get people back on their own, especially when they have no financial security. And I remember after the Asian tsunami, there were 5,000 Thai people who had lost absolutely everything, very low age, educated, couldn't relocate. And I brought business leaders to this area because I needed them to find an opportunity for these people to work as fast as possible, so not to be having to give their children away or become beggars. So the business leaders realized that there was this great market opportunity, that although the wave had actually flattened everything, there were rubber trees that were still standing, and that business people realized there was a viable business here for 10 years. And to market this rubber was just cost $200 per community. And all they needed was a knife, a coconut shell, and a rubber mangle. And they could harvest this rubber for the next 10 years. And in 4 months, they were earning more than they ever earned as their previous jobs in the hotel industry. So this is what we do. We give people a massive hand up through economic empowerment. In Nepal now, we're helping with the farmers to actually replace their cattle, their cows, their livestock, getting the women back sewing and making school uniform. So they're back in business again. They can earn their own money and they can feed their own families. It's a hand up, not a handout. And it's so powerful and so rewarding.
I love that. I love that because there is nothing better than feeling empowered to take care of yourself. Nobody really wants a handout. I mean, that's not empowering. That's, you know, sometimes you need it to get to the next level, but to get them self-sufficient. And I love that idea of the rubber industry there, that I love that people can really use the resources that they have there and bringing in people's minds as well as their wallets to create creative solutions for these communities. That is so incredible. So, you know, and also I want to say it's hard to imagine, you know, it's winter here in Boston and we have 3 levels or 3 different areas where in our home where it's heated, and we lost one of the functions of our furnace this week. So we had to put logs in the fireplace last night. It's hard to imagine that, you know, that's my hardship of having to buy extra wood for the fireplace versus the woman who's trying to give away her baby to survive. So how can we get more people really in touch with the need that's out there to awaken that? Because I think most people have a heart and they want to help, to awaken their awareness around that, but also to let them know how they can help in tangible ways. Because I think it's very overwhelming to think about that woman who's trying to give her baby away, or to think about a landslide or an earthquake on the other side of the planet when you're sitting wherever you are in your cushy little office.
Yes, I mean, there's so many, many, many ways that people can help. I mean, the simplest way to help people who are in these desperate situations is there's always a way that you can donate a small amount of money. And what I love about third world countries is the smallest amount of money can make a huge difference. So, you know, $50 can buy 2 goats, which enables a couple to breed the goats and to be able to sell milk, meat, and have their own livelihood. $200 can actually start a small community back up and running. So that's the great thing, is it never takes a lot of money. So donation is always there. If you're in your area, come and support some of the projects, meet with Jim and hear the stories and have a great experience. And I think you're going to be sharing the details of where we are. Our main website is wandaid.org. That's WANDAIDORG. So please do that. And look at the events that we're having in your area. But I do feel that, you know, none of us are helpless. I think there's just always small ways. And if you feel and you're not able to actually donate to help people overseas, the great thing is to show that love and kindness to the people in your closest area, your family, your community, those random acts of kindness, that the ripple effect is so massive. Never forget that. That smile changed someone's day in just a heartbeat. So there's so many things you could do. Never feel that you don't have the ability. And that's why, of course, we started Wandaid in a way, because I take magicians to the front line. Jim Carter is going to be coming to the front line with me to Nepal in about 3 weeks' time. He's going to be bringing smiles to the faces of those Nepali children, and he is voting with his feet, and he's coming. And I open this up to your audience too. Anyone that wants to come with me to the front line, go onto the website to wandaid.org, sign up. It's an amazing experience, and you will see for yourself the difference it can be just to be there. I take teams of huggers as well as teams of business leaders. We need everyone on the front line.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the show. There's still more great content to come, but I wanted to take just a minute to talk to you about a new course I've created called Close Any Room. You may have noticed that all of my guests know how to speak about their businesses in a clear and compelling way. But that's something a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, and it's something you need to know how to do so you can convert your audience into more sales. And that's why I've created this course. It's a 6-week audio course to teach you how to craft a signature talk so that you can authentically give value and close more of your audience from the stage. In the class, you learn how to create a clear and compelling point of view, how to organize your content and give great value to your audience without giving away the farm, how to structure your talk so that it seamlessly closes your audience at the end without feeling salesy. And I also give you templates and instructions how to create marketing materials, a speaker sheet, and all kinds of sign-up sheets when you're giving your talks. And finally, what everybody's hot to know, I also give you tips and resources on how to find speaking gigs. It's an all-inclusive course so that you can start closing and selling more from the stage. And as my free gift to you for tuning into the podcast, I'm giving you my free webinar, also called Close Any Room, and you can listen to it at clearvoicebranding.com/close-any-room. And it will give you lots of tips and information to get you started on how to create that signature talk that sells. Okay, we're going to get back to the show now. There's still more great content to come. Thanks for joining me.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm getting verklempt over here, because I just, for lots of reasons. One of them is, as a musician, you know, I mentioned that I've been a musician since I was 5 years old. I've wanted to be a professional musician. I spent my whole life training. And when it didn't work out for me, in the sense of I wasn't at the Metropolitan Opera, I didn't have a huge, massive singing career, sometimes it felt like, well, what was all of that for? But to hear how the arts and magicians are changing people's lives who are suffering, I mean, that just makes me so happy. And I don't know, it fills my heart with joy because it's so empowering to know that whatever talent that you have really does matter. And some people I think are like, well, what can I do? I love the thing about the smile. Smile at someone. You never know. You never know if they've just lost someone, if they've lost their job, if they had just a crappy day. And, like it just changes the ripple effect, changes the whole, consciousness of
Yes.
the world.
Yes, it really, really does. And, that's why, I'm a magician. My father is a magician. My grandfather was a magician. So I've been brought up that knowing that if you can bring some happiness, some joy, some surprise, some curiosity through music, through magic, through drama, through sport, all of these things, you have to heal heart and soul as well as heal with economic empowerment. We have to do both simultaneously because our
Right.
emotional state our vibration needs to be lifted. And you can do all of this through all these great feeling activities. So always, simultaneously, I'm doing my hardcore aid work with economic empowerment. Always there's psychological recovery. We do both simultaneously. And how amazing that these actors like Jim are going to vote with their feet and come out and be with me. I'm just overwhelmed by how wonderful it is. And, people that meet him this coming time in Boston, you will see what a great humanitarian is, as well as a great actor, of course.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to meet him. And also I was going to say that, you don't, on the flip side of it, you don't have to be an actor or a magician or a singer or whatever. Everybody has their gift. Maybe your gift is financial. Maybe your gift is, building something, maybe you're a carpenter or whatever. Maybe you're a magician, but everybody has something that they can give. And I think having that sense of purpose and contribution applies to everybody.
That's so true. I'm not very good at all the social media and the technical side of life. And when people come to me and say, I can help you spread the word, I clap my hands because, again, it's just totally not my skill. So someone who likes to be at home more but has this type of skill, if anyone wants to join us on this journey of change, there's a very big welcome because it's one world. We are all global citizens. And the more we take care and love each other, the happier our world will be. And so, this is a joy to be with you on the show, Heather. And I really welcome people in whatever way they wish to make contact and to share their skills and their joy and their passion, whatever it is, and just become part of the team. It's a great positive movement of change.
So let me ask, I have two questions about this. Well, actually one question and one comment. Do you have to be on foot? Do you have to hop a plane and go to Nepal to share those gifts? Do you ever bring in media? So if somebody wanted to share a story that they could watch on a computer, do you do it that way virtually? Can people share virtually with your audience over there? Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's all been set up. We record all the projects that happen in Nepal and they are videoed so that the donors can see exactly where their money is going and vice versa. We need to hear how people are engaged. It's a virtual world now, so you don't need to hop on the plane. Always be connected. That proximity is very important. Yes.
And then the other comment that I had was it's how important story is, because when you think about a typhoon, it's so big. It's hard to really wrap your brain around it. But when you said $50 can buy, was it one or two goats to keep a family going?
Yes.
I thought,
yes.
oh, I would like to do that. And I'd like to know their names, and I want to know how many kids they have, and I want to know what they're calling their goats. So to have those individual stories bring the people to life and to your heart, I think that's really powerful.
Yes, and that's a key thing that the charity does, because I feel that because we are one family in one world, you'll see on the website, wanderaid.org, that we actually profile the way people were after the disaster happened, the intervention, how the donor helped, and the result. And it's actually the person, the family. You'll see the children, you'll see them washing at the well, you'll see them out on their fishing boats, you'll see them feeding the cows, you'll see the children going back to school, and that's what's really powerful.
Right. Love that. I love that. So two questions. If you could go back, because I think you're a superstar, and I love to talk to people who I think are stars, who are out there going and making life a big life for themselves and for other people. But you probably didn't know that. I mean, obviously from the story you told at the beginning of being the nurse and having all that stress in your life. But if you could go back to your 6-year-old self, what would you
Mm.
tell her about the journey of that you're about to go on in life?
I think it is really, and I suppose in a way I'm talking to parents because often as a young child you are very molded by who's around you, but always keep a close eye on the interest, the activities, the passion of that 6-year-old, and really honor it. Whether it's, whether it's creativity, whether it's art, whether it's being in nature, whether it's communicating, whether it's singing, but whether it's writing that story, because these are all jewels that we need to watch and to nurture, and to also to really build that positivity around that young person, because we don't want any of those skills or passions squashed at a young age. And I think those are the key messages, definitely.
Yeah, I love that because you never know how it's going to blossom. And we all have many different chapters in our lives, and it's different ways that whatever that kernel of infancy of creativity is when you're 6, you don't know how
Yeah,
it's going to get expressed. How it's expressed when you're 20 is very different from when you're 50. So I think to keep that flame alive is important.
because often I do keynotes and I'll meet an insurance person who's been in insurance for 30 years, and he said, gosh, when I was 20 I wanted to be a chef. What happened? And I think that's such a good thing to realize, that you don't want to get towards the end of your life and have any regrets. That's why it's so important to keep reconnecting with our purpose and our passion,
Right.
and that even encourage the child most importantly, to be aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great message. So, Linda, I always ask at the end, because we're coming to the end of my interviews, there's so much to be grateful for. I am grateful that I am sitting in my home and not in Nepal right now and struggling to just stay warm. But in this moment, we have this time together, the stars aligned from, New Zealand to London to Boston, all these, but we're here together in this moment. And in this very moment, what are you most grateful for?
I'm grateful that I can bring a smile to people's faces. I'm grateful that I now have the ability to have such amazing support team around me, to be able to have my voice to be heard after being under the radar for 15 years on the front line. I'm very grateful to people like Jim and the Downton Abbey actors that have been supporting me over the years, that they can also come and experience what's happening on the front line and encourage the people that are their fans to be part of it. And I'm most grateful for my family, who have been my huge cheerleaders all the way through my life, and my parents, who have been my inspiration.
I love that. I love that. And you brought up one thing just before we close that I want to ask you about, because you mentioned that you were sort of under the radar for a while. What would you tell people who feel like they have a mission, who are struggling to get their voice out? What was like a big turning point for you to really get that exposure that you needed to bring more attention to your cause?
I think what I didn't do is I wasn't listening to people who said to me, Linda, you've got a really important story to tell, do it. And that, I must admit, I have to credit that to Richard Branson, because I met him, as I said, in Johannesburg, and he said, write your book, tell your story, let's do it. But I was so busy doing, I didn't realize I needed to take the next step and share what I was doing. And I think you're right, stories are so powerful. I wrote my book, Marmalade and Machine Guns, because I was encouraged by so many people to write the story, because stories are the most powerful messages. So I would say, listen to people that are around you, and know that there are so many ways, especially now with the internet and YouTube and recording videos. Be your own promoter, know what your gifts are, and share them the best way you can. Don't hide your light under a bushel. You were born to shine. That's my message.
Woohoo! Oh, I love that. I'm going to clap some more because I love that. You are not born to be under bushel, and I believe that with heart and soul. Thank you so much for joining me, Linda, and for persevering with the techno problems that we had. And as you're grateful for your family and for having this voice and being supported, I am grateful for you and for not only for the time that you've taken to share your story with us here, but for your light in the world and for your courage and tenacious persistence on following that light that inside of you that was leading you to go down this path, because it takes a brave person to do that. And you doing that gives other people the path to step up into their own brilliance and to share their own gifts. So I want to thank you so much for the light that you bring into the world, for the lives that you're changing, to bring this message to us and to bring this awareness to us. I really appreciate it, and I want to applaud you for all that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been great chatting to you, Heather, and thank you.
Thank you so much. And as always, as a thank you for my listeners for being part of the audience, I offer my free webinar on how to learn to speak and sell from the stage. And you can get that at clearvoicebranding.com/close-any-room. So if you have a message that you want to get out, that would be a great free resource to start planning it. Thank you so much, Linda. And I wish you all the best. Before we sign off, the website is www.wanday.org, which I put in the chat. And Jim and Linda are going to be at the Regent Theater in Arlington. They're going to be in Somerville and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I believe it's starting next week. So you can go to the website and check that out and check out the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Heather.
Bye, everybody.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Thrive. I loved having you here. I love having you as part of my community. And if you're enjoying the show, I would love it if you share it with your friends on Twitter, on Facebook, or wherever they're hanging out. I also want to let you know you can leave me feedback or comments. I love hearing from you. Just post those at heatherpoduska.com. You can also leave suggestions for topics that you'd like to know more about, or if there's someone you'd really like to see on the show, let me know that as well. Okay, until next time, here's to hitting all your high notes. Take care. Bye-bye.